Victories at Ontario school boards for Team Normal are few and far between these days. So many school boards have veered so out of control, going woke and politically correct. No longer are schools all that concerned with the 3 Rs. Rather, indoctrination has eclipsed education. Marxism is being peddled in the guise of inclusion, diversity, and equity. So it was that for the concerned parents in the audience, the YCDSB turning down the demand to fly the pride flag was a sweet victory in the mouth of madness. As for the LGBTers, one must ponder, is this community really that fragile? You know, that unless a multicolored piece of cloth gets to flap in the breeze, then this inaction is akin to a hate crime, that this will somehow be constituted as a slap in the face. Geez Louise, it's a flag, for goodness sake, and a fake flag at that. Get over yourselves. By the way, speaking of the pride flag, this thing, like some of the constituents it represents, it seems very fluid these days, doesn't it, folks? Here's the original pride flag. Now, speaking strictly from a design standpoint, I like it. I mean, who doesn't like a rainbow after all? The presentation is colorful yet simple, you know, like those classic jerseys the Houston Astros used to wear. Indeed, both the original pride flag and the old Houston Astros jersey work if one subscribes to the design philosophy of less is more. But recently, this rendition, or is it abomination, this is what has come along. Apparently, the triangular white, pink, and baby blue hues were added in order to represent the trans community. But wait a minute here. Wasn't the trans community already represented in the original design? I mean, the T in LGBT stands for transgender, right? Never mind. Trans people are extra special people, so they deserve to get double dipping treatment vis-a-vis the flag, I suppose, even if it ruins the design of the original flag. By the way, the brown and black hues apparently represent brown and black people. But wait a minute, isn't the flag all about sexual orientation and gender identification? What does race have to do with that? Well, I guess we'll all have to deal with it, okay? But wait, there's more, folks. The other day at a Starbucks in Whitby, Ontario, I came across this rendition of the pride flag, which was displayed in the cafe's window. Yellow has been added along with a purple circle. What in blue hell is that? I suppose I could Google it, but honestly, I just can't be bothered. Besides, what do you want to bet that the flag will be further updated for 2024? How about adding an illustration of the kitchen sink? I'm just saying this, my queer friends. Your symbol is quickly becoming the Pontiac Aztec of flags, given the hideous mishmash of angles and lines and jarring colors. You're one tweak away from this symbol becoming, well, the flag version of the most hideous hockey jersey ever concocted. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Vancouver Canucks, circa 1978 to 1985. I can't believe I bought one of those jerseys back in high school when my second favorite Maple Leaf player of all time, that would be Tiger Williams, was traded to Vancouver. Did he say which? Anyway, when it comes to flags and inclusivity, I kind of like the red and white one that flies over our great, albeit constantly under attack, Dominion. That would be the Canadian flag. Last I checked, it's supposed to stand for all Canadians, regardless of one's sexual orientation or gender identification. But apparently, such an all-encompassing flag isn't good enough for the queer community. I don't get that. After all, a nation's flag is supposed to unify all its citizens, is it not? Another thing, how and why did this celebration of queerness morph from a single Pride Day to a Pride Week to a Pride Month? And now advocates are pushing for Pride Season. You know, that chunk of calendar real estate, otherwise known as summer. How much acknowledgement do these cats need? Indeed, does it not seem so perverse to you that there is only one day set aside every November to honor our veterans and those who made the ultimate sacrifice? Why is that? Well, I think I know why, given the context of the loony left these days, which is to say, this idea of men going to war and fighting and sometimes dying, well, that's so much toxic masculinity, isn't it? Can't have that, not these days, even though it was a damn good thing we had copious amounts of toxic masculinity some 80 years ago when it came to putting down a certain dictator hell-bent on world conquest while carrying out a genocide. Otherwise, maybe we're speaking German in Canada today. Otherwise, the swastika, rather than the maple leaf, flies from coast to coast to coast. Say, do you think there would be any tolerance for the pride flag in that sort of fascist regime? So maybe a little toxic masculinity here and there is not such a bad thing after all, wouldn't you say? And yet, how shameful that 4 of the YCDSB trustees placed their Catholic values in the closet on Monday night and actually voted for the so-called Pride Progress flag to be hoisted. They bought into the lunatic fringe argument that by not raising the flag, Catholic schools would not be safe spaces. Seriously, that was an argument that was presented. No pride flag in June means homophobia and transphobia and biphobia would just go off the charts. Does anyone really believe that? Look, if there are any students who are part of the queer community at any school who are being harassed and bullied, well, that is appalling and egregious. But does anyone really think that the gay bashers out there are rendered impotent by the flying of a pride flag? Really? No, what's needed is for school principals to actually live up to the zero tolerance for bullying mantra as opposed to simply giving lip service to it, which is sadly par for the course these days. Speaking of bullying, we also have to consider the players behind the Pride Flag campaign, such as Paulo De Bono. Now, this guy is a real piece of work, folks. He is, or maybe was, a teacher in the Toronto Catholic District School Board. When we first attempted to reach out to him, he was teaching at St. Antoine Daniel School, but due to an avalanche of parents complaining to the Toronto Catholic Board, Mr. De Bono has either been reassigned to another school or maybe, just like Busty Lemieux in Halton, he is being paid a full salary to stay at home and do nothing. That's how school boards roll these days, folks. They reward failure. So what's the skinny on De Bono? Well, if you can imagine, he's a Catholic school board teacher, no less, who hates Catholicism. I know that's crazy, kind of like saying, I know of a wolf that hates to eat red meat, but it's true. Our friend Sue Ann Levy at True North has done a stellar job chronicling the perverse agenda of Mr. De Bono. For example, he claims that Jesus Christ was black and that he was either transgender or non-binary, even though he has no proof of this whatsoever. He bragged that he was going to be the first teacher to bring Drag Queen Story Hour to a Catholic school. Even to this day, he wears 2 masks indoors, typically peppered with LGBT political statements. And at St. Antoine, he allegedly took down the cross in his classroom and replaced it with a pride flag, creating a so-called rainbow room. And De Bono is a nasty piece of work. If he disagrees with you, he'll block you on Twitter. If he really, really disagrees with you, he'll threaten to sue you. How Christian of him.
That was an excerpt from the Ezra Levant Show. I'm Ezra Levant. Every weekday, I do a monologue about the topic of the day. Then I interview a fascinating guest either in studio or via Skype. And then I read your mail, whether it's fan mail or hate mail, which is sometimes even more interesting. This is on our premium service, though, called Rebel News Plus. Go to rebelnewsplus.com. It's $8 a month or less if you buy a whole year in advance. You get my show every weeknight, plus Sheila Gunn Reid's show every week. It's called The Gun Show. It's pretty amazing. You know, we rely on you because we do not take a dime from the government. In Canada, that makes us almost unique. So please help us out and help yourself to some great journalism at rebelnewsplus.com.